comes in. You know, it's no joke. Chasing the rains down in Africa is awfully fun. I just got back from Africa not too long ago. You're listening to Raised in Wisco with Joel Clayfish and Danielle Fairman. And tonight, the one, the only, the former president of Safari Club International, Wisconsin, the former Waukesha County Sheriff, one of the best hunters I know, dear friend, and all-around pretty decent guy, Dan Trawicki is joining us today. So, Dan, we really appreciate that you're here.
Yes, thank you.
And, you know, if it weren't for Dan Trawicki,
yes,
I probably would have never seen the back of a squad car in my life.
That's not where I thought this was going. Joel was telling me a wonderful story about how he was going to Greenland and all this. That's where I thought it was going.
You thought it was?
You actually were in the back of a cop car.
Well, I was, but not for the reason you think.
Oh, probably not.
No, I was a television news reporter at the time, and I'll tell you, it's a very bizarre, and Dan can chime in on this if he likes. It's a very bizarre dynamic between the media and law enforcement, because law enforcement, they want to give you information that you need. They want to give you information that's going to help the public and keep the public secure and safe. Yeah. But the Milwaukee market, as far as news market goes, is kind of middle upper size market. So a lot of the people who come to work in Milwaukee are kind of using it as a stepping stone. Some are coming here to make a life. That's what I was interested in doing. And, you know, you got people like Nick Bohr who've been around forever, and he's phenomenal, and Colleen Henry, and some of the people who've made lives here. But then there are others who are using it as a stepping stone. And law enforcement is dealing with investigations very often. So they have to be very careful with proprietary information. And if somebody in the media burns them on some information that they give out, well, then the law enforcement agency is obviously substantially less likely to trust them in the future. But actually, this is kind of a part of my life we don't talk about a whole lot on Raised in Wisco. But
we do not.
Back in the investigative journalism days, I had some amazing opportunities to work with the police back in the days before the show Cops. You know the show Cops that everybody sees.
Knows Cops.
Yes, well, remember,
what you gonna do?
Yeah, in the late 90s, they would go into people's houses on the busts, so the drug busts, the knock and drop busts. I got to do that with the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department.
Oh.
Literally went along on busts into the homes of the drug dealers with them with a camera. I'm not even it was crazy.
What an adrenaline rush.
I cannot explain to you what kind of adrenaline rush that is.
I don't ever want to experience
And at the time, Dan Trawicki was in the Sheriff's Department and then eventually ran for sheriff, and we worked on a lot of those things together. So Dan and my relationship preceded me ever hunting. Think about that.
Sure. So a lot of people may not know this, Joel, but the first time you and I ever met, and your wife Rebecca as well, is as news reporters. So I want to guess it was back in the 90s.
For sure.
Like that.
100%.
And, I was the sheriff back then, and there would be stories, and you guys would come out, and we would talk about whatever stories is. And I was always a little leery of the press, but you and Rebecca always, along with several others, Charles Benson, who I worked with a lot.
Charles Benson is great.
Just a great guy. We're just always respectful and always really kind. And I can remember I'd get to work and there'd be a long list of phone calls to make, and I'd start returning calls, and people like yourself or Rebecca or Charles would be like, "Thank you so much for calling back." And I'd be like, why wouldn't I call back? Like, you left a message to call you back.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't always work that way.
It does not work that way.
But that was the history of you, and Charles, and like you say, and Rebecca, going back a long time before you ever hunted at all.
That is part of the craziest part to me, is because you develop a level of trust, but I didn't even know. So think about this, Danielle. I've only been hunting since I was 38 years old. Mm-hmm. That was the first time I ever hunted in my life. I didn't have a dad who was into hunting who took me. And this is one of the reasons on this show and in Raised in Wisco, it's so important to the mission of this show to get people involved in hunting and to tell them and share with them, you do not have to be somebody who's surrounded by hunters in order to be brought into it. We are here to tell you that if you have even an inkling of interest, or if you like cooking, culinary arts, wild game, the thought of wild game, fishing, eating fish or seafood, go to somebody and ask them. Because I don't know any hunter who's an ethical, honest hunter who's not excited about the opportunity to share it with somebody. And Dan, that's kind of been your mission. Very early on when I started even getting into hunting, our friendship that preceded that turned into, well, Joel, maybe you should consider this or try this, or do you need a contact for this? Far before I was involved with Safari Club, far before I was involved with any of the outdoor sporting organizations. In fact, I had the television show, which was a fishing show at the time. And, you know, people like Dan were always willing. And for Dan, that's been something, you have notches in the bottom of your turkey calls of people you take hunting.
Notches?
That's always been really important to you.
Yeah, so it's funny. So, like, we've mentored so many kids turkey hunting. The one year I took 6 kids, I think. A lot of them were deputies' sons and daughters and stuff like that. And we got 6 gobblers that spring, you know. And
Wow.
So, I've just always loved turkey hunting. And turkey hunting, as you know and as Danielle knows, is something that is so conducive to taking young people or taking new hunters. And so it's just, I mean, we've both done it a lot, and it just adds so much, you know, and taking my own daughter, Abby, and everything else, you know, it adds a lot to the whole experience.
That's the one good thing about hunters is that we want to share our experiences. A lot of people want to just to have, this is my space, this is my time, but as hunters, we want to bring people out there. We want to have those first experiences. And talking with Anastasia, a producer.
Oh, trust me, I was just about to bring that up.
That's
You're
what
not
we
sneaking
do.
out of this.
I will take your mics down. I will run the show myself.
That's the
You're
problem.
busted. You're totally
That's
busted.
the problem with the producer has complete control
She
over what
does.
the audience hears.
Anastasia, you're very pretty. You look nice today.
Danielle gets to keep her mic.
Oh boy,
I also
That's-
have bandits.
You know
so.
what happens though too?
I feel triggered now.
You know, Danielle and Joel, you know this. It's like, so when you start off, it's all about wanting to harvest game and doing all that.
No
But
question.
the longer that you do it, and I've done it a long time, when I go, it's far more about the experience. Or when I hunt with my daughter, I rarely take a weapon, you know, and it's sharing it through their eyes or somebody else's eyes. And more, it's about, you know, when we go to different trips, we enjoy black coffee in the morning at the campfire or something that, you know, a drink in the evening by the campfire, probably as much, if not more, than whatever occurs during the day on the hunt, you know.
Oh, no doubt about it. I don't think there's a hunter among us. So, and you're right. There are definitely stages. When you start hunting, it's really all about what can I bag and take home. I mean,
It's meeting limits.
Right. Yes,
Like you want to
meeting
get
your
your
limits.
limit right away. And
I got my buck.
I got my
How'd you
buck.
do? I got my buck.
I got my buck. I got I filled my turkey tag. We got a limit of geese or a limit of ducks that day. But I'm gonna tell you that. And I love watching the evolution. It's funny because I feel like that I was on I think I was on hypersonic speed moving through the levels of what a hunter is, and probably has something to do with me starting later in life.
oh yeah, there's more. You have more. What's the word I'm looking for? You have more.
More experiences in a shorter amount of time.
Like more appreciation.
Oh, no doubt. But I moved through that first phase. I mean, I was in that first phase, and I will tell you that is a very real phase. That, hey, what can I bag it? Can I make my limit? Can I fill my tag? But that quickly for me turned into what creatively can I do with this meat after I kill it? Because I think most people, when they first harvest, they come home and the old saying, butter and onions. Throw it in a pan with some onions and butter and eat it. Right. And that's great. Man, let me tell you, a fresh deer tenderloin in butter and onions, it really doesn't get much better. But if you're going to start eating wild game on a daily basis, or as my family does, on an everyday basis, you know, we don't really buy store-purchased meat in our family. You have to start getting creative. So mine turned to that, and it also turned to, oh my gosh, I can't wait to show this to someone else. I can't wait to drag somebody else out here with me. And I have had through the years the most unlikely people sitting in a blind with me. You know, Ken Kindler, a very dear friend of mine, his wife, my wife comes up and says, well, do you think you'd ever take Jill Kindler hunting. Now, Jill Kindler is, around my age. We'll just say it that way. She's around my age, and her first experience hunting was a couple of years ago, and we're in a turkey field. And I always laugh because this has not only happened once. It's happened several times. I've taken a new hunter, and they're kind of, I don't know if I can kill something. Mm-hmm. And I say, that's okay. Right. That's okay. If you can't kill it, if it comes out and it gets into the right position and there's an ethical shot and you can't kill it, that's fine. We're bird watching then. And you're going to have a great time through the excitement of luring. And I'm telling you, the second that red and blue head popped over the corner of the woods, about 1,000 yards away, I just about got mauled because I was in between Jill Kindler and the gun. And she's grabbing the gun. Can I shoot it yet? Can I shoot it yet? And so I said, no, hold on. It's too far. We're not in shotgun range yet. Let's try to see if we can coax that turkey in. So the turkey finally makes its way to the decoys. And I said, you put that red dot on. I had a 20 gauge with a red dot on it. You put that right at the base of the neck and you slowly squeeze that trigger. And she shoots this thing, and both of us go ass over tea kettle backwards. The blind flies up over our heads, and the wind catches it, and the blind's about 100 yards away. And she looks at me on the ground and said, did I kill it? I said, I have no idea. We're both on the ground on our back. We sit up, and there's the turkey flopping. And that was one of the coolest, most fantastic first hunt experiences I've ever had. And now Ken Kindler's wife's going to Africa and harvesting kudu there.
Is she? That's exciting.
Adrenaline
rush of taking someone and seeing them harvest their first animals, unrivaled.
Let me just give you another quick story. It's so when we take our kids.
50 seconds. You sure you don't want to hold it till the next break? Hold this story, Dan.
I'll hold it.
Yeah,
because
I
really
want to
good
hear
story.
It sounds like a good story. But I'm going to take us into the break with the fact that I had a really, really good week. The Fowl Life debuted on the Outdoor Channel. Ted Nugent Show, Spirit of the Wild, debuted on the Pursuit Channel. And I am in 6 episodes of both those shows on national television.
Congrats.
Pretty excited about that. So check those out. And we'll be right back on Raised in Wisco with Joel Clayfish and Danielle.
To drag me away from you. To drag me away from you. Have disowned a few others than me. I guess it's because I kind of changed my direction.
Hank Williams talking about that family tradition. And you can start your own traditions, and you can call anybody you hunt with family because they kind of become extended family. Welcome back to Raised in Wisco with Joel Clayfish alongside Danielle Fairman and Hunter / Sheriff / Safari Club / friend extraordinaire Dan Trawicki is joining us. We went into the break. I was telling you guys that I was pretty excited about the fact that the Fowl Life has debuted their new season. Texas teal first, and then we go to New York and hunt with firefighters who were actually firefighters on 9/11. So they were first responders on 9/11, and that hunt, and I got to go along on that hunt, and I get to be in the shows. We cook, man, everything from speckled belly goose to wild goose nachos, and just had the time of our lives in upstate New York, which is very different than the city. Everybody thinks of New York as New York City, but I have to tell you, upstate New York is absolutely beautiful, and the funnels there between the ocean and the Adirondacks, and those big Canada geese are moving through there, and they've never seen a hunter. So they're a little bit easier to fool than
That's
your
nice.
average goose. Yeah.
Have you experienced, I'm sure you have, but graders? I did not know there was a goose called graders.
Graders and lessers, yeah.
Yeah, I knew there were lessers. I just never put 2 and 2 together. There's
You put
going
them
to be
next to each
graders.
other, it's
Oh,
My
huge
goodness.
difference.
The first time I heard a grader hit the ground, I was like, what?
Well-
what? What was that?
Most of what we kill is graders here, but we end up killing a lot of the younger ones, which are not as big as their parents, but their parents can
they're
get up
still
to,
graders.
they can get up to like 16, 17 pounds, some of them. It's insane. Yeah, it's like a bowling ball falling out of the sky at you. And
It
and
definitely
trust
is.
me, it feels like it when they land on you. I'm not able to dodge and weave like I used to. Or maybe there's just more mass, so it's easier for him to hit me. I don't know. Who knows? But it's been an exciting weekend. I'm leaving did I tell you guys I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go gator hunting in 110-degree heat in Florida? So
taking the early flight.
I'm taking the early flight in the morning and then going down hunting with my buddy Keith Parlier, Mid-Florida Outfitters. He is unbelievable. And he is taking me along. He's like, well, you're going to be a hand tomorrow. You're going to be a hand. And I've done this before with him. And I know if there's one sure way to die, it's usually not being bitten by a gator or a wild hog. It's working for Keith, loading 500-pound gators onto the back of a truck in the middle of 110-degree heat.
What is the process of that? Obviously, they shoot them right between the eyes like you see on them. And then you get a hook and just whack.
So there's several ways to hunt gators. They have a triangle on their head, and that's you got to hit them in that spot. Otherwise, they're cold-blooded and they will release their air bladder and go down to the bottom, and then it's tough trying to find them at that point. But so sometimes we'll bait for them, sometimes we'll shoot them, and then we'd take a musky rod and try to hook them as they're rolling off the bank. Or sometimes we will use the musky rod to hook onto them to get them close enough to get a shot on them. But it is
shoot them with bows and
floats. 100%. I've done that. Oh yes, we've done them that way. I'll tell you that. It kind of depends on the experience level of the hunter when we do that. And the reason for that is when you're shooting a gator with a bow that's got a float attached to it, that line has to unravel as it's shot. If that line is caught around something or doesn't come off evenly, that arrow that's attached to it takes off. And then when that line or that rope becomes stiff, if it does not free spooling off of there, it'll boomerang and that arrow is coming right back at the person who shot it. So we're very careful with that. I harvested one down there. I shot one with a crossbow. So you shoot it, they take off, and then you throw the float in the water, and then you chase the float around to grab it and pull them in and kill them. Well, my shot, I was shooting only the head of the gator was out, and I shot it so perfectly well, the arrow actually went into the diamond on its head and stoned it, so there was no chase in that case, which is good. And the boots are great. I've got 5 pairs of boots of different colors. I've got about 10 holsters made out of gator skin and a briefcase. That is awesome. But that's what we talk about, utilizing every part of the animal. We went into break. Dan Trawicki was going to tell us a story, and I cut him off because the breaks come so fast and furious.
No, so real quick, and Hang Song family tradition was a good lead-in because my daughter, Abby, she'll be 30 this fall, but she's been hunting with me since she was 7 years old, 5 years old, going along. And so when you take your kids and some people that go, you sometimes wonder, especially as a father, are they doing it because they really like it, or are they doing it just because they think I want them to do it? So I know
the struggle's real with the answer to that one.
Right. So I know the answer in my heart to this, but we were turkey hunting this spring, and we were struggling, her and I, and in one of our backfields, there were 3 gobblers strutting, so I said, we're going to have to just make a sneak on these birds, So we sneak up, and she's got the only gun, and called them in, and they came close, and she shoots, with her 20 gauge with a red dot scope, and rolls this big gobbler, and he's sort of doing the, the turkey flop where they do the wing beat thing, which they're dead. Their nerves kick in, and I never said a word, and she jumps up and she walks out, jacks a shell in, and shoots the bird again. and I walked up to her, and I'm like, that really wasn't necessary, And she said, I know, Dad, but I just didn't want him to get away, And I thought, that's my daughter. Yep, that's my girl.
Okay, well, you passed along something to her. And what's really funny to me is I got a friend who is hunting. Danielle and I have hunted with him several times, and he was out hunting turkey this year, and he was the last day, and he shoots a tom, and it just stones it dead. Comes back, and he's out there. He takes his 2 and 3 year old kids with him, put them in a blind. Yep. They like going. They're not always the quietest, but that's the beauty of a blind. It covers a lot of ills. So he stones this bird, comes back to the truck, puts the bird on the tailgate, puts the gun on the empties the gun, puts it on the tailgate, puts his kids in their booster seats in the back of the truck, walks back out, and the bird jumped off the tailgate, ran away, and now he's got no loaded gun or anything like this, and the bird takes off and flies away midfield.
Gone.
After it was on the tailgate. Man, that's how fast the show
Heart-dropping.
goes. That was a bummer.
Yeah.
We'll be right back on Raised in Wisco. You're listening to 540 AM.
Working hard 6 to 6, it's a paycheck. $100, buy some smoke and some long necks. Gearing up my buddies.
Yeah, that's Corey Michael, my buddy who was in town hunting with us a couple years ago. Waist High Water, man. Check it out. You can check it out on all the music sources. It is an awesome, fun song.
I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, it's fun. It's awesome.
It's a good beat for summer.
Corey Michael, he's an aspiring country musician. He's actually quite successful in and around Nashville, but he's just a fantastic guy too. So check his music out. We went into the break talking about how crazy turkey hunting can actually be, and every once in a while you wonder, is what we're doing making a difference? Is it? And I just can tell a small anecdote. I'm looking at her over there. Anastasia, our producer, who does an awesome job for us on Raised in Wisco and puts up with our malarkey from a couple of jamokes in the studio every week. She's not much of an experienced hunter herself, but she was proud to tell us that she and her boyfriend might actually consider deer hunting this year. And I was so excited. I felt honored that you actually were willing to share that with me. She's in there.
That was the first thing she told us.
I told him in the car, I said, when I tell Joel, he's going to freak out. And he goes, you don't have to tell Joel.
Yeah,
of
right.
course you do.
Don't. But I feel like maybe, part of the fact that you work for the station and everything, I think you might have been obligated to tell me.
Yeah. It's, what is it, collusion if I don't tell you that
that's
I'm going
right.
hunting?
That's right.
You just see me in a blind one day and you're like,
oh.
what is that?
Well, if he decides that is something for him this year, I know that Danielle and Dan Trawicki and I all would be happy to consult because we do love getting new hunters in. And like we've said on the show before, regardless of political philosophies or personal philosophies, it is an organic source of food, and it's a really great way to spend time in the outdoors. Now, killing something to put it on their plate is not for everybody. I get that. However, if you want to be an actual ethical person, it's good to know where your food comes from. And it's also good to be a part of the process of the importance and magnitude of taking a life to sustain yours. And I think that's something that's important that gets overlooked very often when we have the debate between whether we should have open access to hunting and fishing versus those who may not agree with hunting and fishing. If you don't agree with hunting and fishing, then you really shouldn't be going to the grocery store and buying a package of ground beef either, because that animal is born and raised to be killed and put on your plate. And when you have the responsibility and a high enough level of ethics and concern for the life you're taking, and then you put it on your plate, I think you're taking that bite with much more of an overt understanding of the grandeur of life. And I don't think that overstates it.
No, and there's something, Joel, too, that I've said sometimes that when I've had respectful conversations with people that are anti-hunting or don't believe in the whole process. And I've said, the main difference between you and I is that I choose to harvest the animals myself ethically.
Yep.
I choose to hunt them myself, and you pay somebody else to do it. That's the only difference. Because, even if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, the harvesting of grain, the harvesting of crops, there are a lot of lives that are being taken in the process. So before somebody gets up, and decries me for what I'm doing, it's just whether you do it yourself or pay somebody else to do it, but we're all doing the same thing.
The only negative feedback I have gotten from somebody is that they believe that we just shoot just to shoot. We don't take ethical shots. We don't use the animal in its full form. Like, we just do it, and if we make a unethical shot, then we don't care. That was the only thing. They said, well, we don't mind about the whole like the whole processing and everything, but it's the
Go to a
harvesting.
slaughterhouse sometime.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Go to a
absolutely
slaughterhouse
not.
sometime.
And that, I mean, part of what you're talking about too really does go to the notion, the cliche, you know, a bad apple spoils the bunch. And that is part. Look, you've got good and bad people, good intentioned and bad intentioned people in every aspect of life. And there are some unethical hunters. I'm not going to sit here and say there's no one out there doing the wrong thing, because there are. And each one of us in this room has also made mistakes when we've been out there that we wish we could take back or change. The fact of the matter is the vast majority of people I know who are taking game from the field to the table are doing it in a way that they are harvesting in the most ethical way possible, the quickest kill, you know, reducing it to its bag is the way that they write it in the DNR codes. And I think that part of it is important to understand as well. I don't like to have arguments with people about it, because sometimes someone who has an argument about it will be firm in their belief and there's nothing you can do to change their mind. But the reality of it is, and the irony of it is, organic farming, which let's say does not use pesticides or herbicides or anything that is going to, you know, chemically repel animals. So organic farming is the farming that ends up literally killing the most animals, because the animals are drawn to the organic grain more. And if those animals are not controlled, the organic grain does not exist. It's eaten instead of harvested and sold to people. And that's another aspect of it. I guess I wish more than anything that both sides, and we're both guilty of it, both sides are guilty of the holier than thou preachiness from time to time. But I wish everybody just looked at the fact that as long as the human race is going to survive and thrive, we need to eat. And where our food comes from, if we're a part of that, if each of us in this room and the people who hunt and fish and harvest and forage throughout the state of Wisconsin, if we're a part of where our food comes from, I think that's a higher level of understanding the importance of this life.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, the last thing I would say on that topic, for me anyways, it's my position has always been the same when I talk to somebody. If you choose not to hunt, if that's not your thing, or if you choose not to eat meat, I'm fine with that.
Absolutely.
I have no problem whatsoever. That's your free choice. So why would you have a problem if I choose to? You know, I mean, that's the part I honestly don't get. But
well, Dan, if we could solve that very philosophical question that you just asked,
life would be grand.
Life would be much more peaceful, and there probably would be a one-party system here in the United States if we could all get along with that, get along on that front. You know, Danielle, I heard some exciting news that you may consider going to South Africa.
Yes. So the last podcast with Ben and
the last
John, thank you. I'm like, wow, I was gonna call him Jason. He would be so mad at me right now. I hearing your trips and seeing all over social media, and I take my animals to Northwoods Taxidermy and seeing all the animals there. It just the seed was planted. It was planted, and it kept growing and doing what we're doing right now is talking about it. And then I messaged Dan on the way home. I said yes after your speech last week. I said, yes, Dan, I would like some more information, please. And then he said, here you go.
No, what you actually said was, can I go? Is there room?
Well, then
Okay,
I
I'm very
probably
blunt.
shouldn't
Yes,
say
can I
if you
go?
want to go to South Africa along on a trip with that Danielle's going on, contact Dan Trawicki, because the spots are filling up.
Oh, I am very pumped about it. I've told, I don't know, probably about 10, 15 guys at work between yesterday and today. They're like, really? It's like, yeah.
And what's crazy about that is my first trip to Africa. Now, I've been 3 times in 2 years, and I'm planning on going next year and the following year. And the following year in perpetuity until I die, because it just, it harbors that much of a section of my heart and soul now. And I have to say, the place that I go is called Johnny Fetting Safaris. And I would not have known about that if it weren't for Dan and COVID. I literally, the other day, it was interesting. I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, I mean, look, I'm not going to joke with you. It's possible I was talking to myself. I think once you hit about 45, you start talking to yourself from time to time. Anastasia's shaking her head no.
Not normal people.
You're not old.
Oh, I started at 30. Are you kidding me?
Danielle, as long as I've known you, you've talked to yourself. It's okay.
Yeah.
And it's not even always grammatically correct, so I don't know what you're talking to yourself
Everything is
about.
correct in my head. Leave me alone.
So I had a trip planned. We had a trip planned to hunt reindeer and muskox in Greenland, and Greenland actually literally shut down all hunters. You couldn't come from another country to hunt Greenland at the time. And Dan said, "Look, we have time." And Dan had helped me plan that trip. He said, we have time to pivot this to a trip to South Africa, which is not something that I didn't have big dreams to go hunt South Africa. I had seen pictures and I thought it looked cool, but it didn't seem like it was for me. And then we changed that trip and we went to Johnny Fetting's safaris. And I want to be clear about this. The vast majority of type of hunting you're going to do in South Africa is high fence hunting. The majority of hunting in South Africa is now high fence hunting. And Dan, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you've hunted several places in the continent of Africa and other countries in Africa, but a lot of it's actually high fence hunting. Now, it's big areas very often, but one of the great things about Johnny Fetting safaris is it is fair chase. And these are animals that exist in these areas because they practice quality animal management in these massive preserves. And preserves probably isn't the right, reserve is probably the right word. There aren't fences. There aren't fences keeping these animals in. They're living their natural life the best they can. They monitor the take just like someone does in a QDM area here for whitetail. And you are having an experience in the actual wilds of South Africa. And that in addition to, the guides who are working their tails off, the amazing food, it just becomes this experience that you can't replicate no matter how you try because there's nowhere else in the world really to do it the way they do it there. And Dan, you just got back.
Right. So a couple things that I would say. First of all, I'm always a little hesitant sometimes to talk about Africa, and I've been there many times, only because it portrays this sort of elitist type of hunter when really nothing could be further from the truth. In North American hunting or a lot of hunting around the world, I mean, this South African hunting has really become like the best value for the dollar that one of my best friends came with me on the trip and he spent for his whole trip less than a really good elk hunt in North America.
Oh, gosh. Less. It's about half nowadays or a third as much to have this experience as you would on a guided elk hunt.
I was talking to Bill about the trip and everything, as I was saying before, and I said, how much did you spend on the elk hunt in Colorado that you went on twice? I could go on 3 trips to Africa for the same amount he did twice.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
So what's really nice with Johnny Fetting, and I've known him for quite a while, is when you get picked up in East London, and you drive to the ranch, which is about a 2-hour drive, never open a gate, never open a fence. 7 families put their land together in this conservancy. So they dropped all their internal fences, they dropped all their fences, and you've got 125,000 acres that you're hunting from the plains and plateaus to the deep river basins to semi-mountainous areas. And then, as you know, on my trip, we went into the mountains and hunted outad Barbary sheep, totally free roaming, which were native originally to North Africa.
Cool. That's so cool.
And that was just really a unique experience. But it's just such a great value for the dollar and nice people, quality experience. And I'm probably one of the only people I know that enjoys the plane ride over. It's just, you
definitely are.
We binge watched Yellowstone all the way over, and it was just wonderful. I don't mind it.
Did you hear about John and Ben's plane rides?
Yeah,
plane rides, plural.
Oh gosh,
train ride, helicopter.
I don't.
The trip to South Africa is
a lot better than Russia.
Oh my gosh, we got Pat on the phone. Pat's
did you have any no
in.
pants, man?
Pat, throw Pat on. We got 1 minute till break. We might have to bring Pat into the next session. But Pat, what's going on? What can we do for you? Welcome to Raised in Wisco.
Oh, I think I maybe have the wrong number. I was calling about Margie Taylor Green.
Oh, well, you got the wrong show, but we're welcome to have you. We're up to 7 listeners with you, Pat, so feel free to stay on.
Well, why did I get this?
I couldn't tell you. But this is Raised in Wisco. We're about the outdoors of Wisconsin and how to enjoy it the most. But thanks for your call, Pat. All right. Well, we're about ready to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Dan a little bit about his history, how he got into hunting and why it was something important to him and how that has influenced his careers since he started in law enforcement. And we'll take you out with Waist High Water by Corey Michael. You're listening to Raised in Wisco.
Up for $1,500 back in 1964. My grandfather was a drinker.
Anastasia, you
back
are
in
on
the
it with the music tonight.
This is a favorite.
I think I'm not sure if Anastasia's laughing with me or at me most of the time.
I'm going to go with Joel.
I think you're laughing at me, but that's okay. I don't mind. I think that there are certain people in life, I will say that there are certain people in life who are good sports. And they get picked on because they're good at getting picked on without it bothering them all that much. And I think I fit into that category. I think I'm one of those people who can be laughed at and be just fine with it because at least someone's laughing, and that's always better than the alternative. And one of my mottos in life is that if you have the opportunity to make anybody else's life you come across during that day even slightly better, you not only should, you have an obligation to do it because we never know what the hell's going on in someone else's life. And if you shoot them a smile or give them a pleasant answer when they're grouchy, so often you will turn their day around on a dime. And if you have a chance to do that, do that. And
especially nowadays, because that is my motto 100% every day. Even when I'm having a bad day, I want to make your day better just because I know what it's like to be in that spot.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
100%.
I can tell you.
I just want to hug everybody.
I smile at everybody. Like anybody who looks at me, even if they look cross, I smile back at them. And I think to myself, and I've seen people's attitude change just from a smile. Yep. And that's kind of, and I don't think this is actually much of a stretch of a connection. That's what sharing hunting to me is. Sharing the outdoors of Wisconsin. It's saying, I've got this secret that I want to share with you because this secret, this cool thing really has changed my life in such a positive direction that I want someone else to experience because I know it will change their life. You've heard me talk about Ken Kindler, my buddy. He, hunted upland birds for a long time. Loved it. Loves his dog. He's a real dog guy, and that's
my
awesome.
Kind of guy.
His dogs are great.
My kind of guy.
But I kind of dragged him, kicking and screaming down to Florida to kill hunt hogs. And then he's down there hunting alligators with us. Then he's going to Africa with us. Now we're going to Austria in a couple of years to hunt chamois in the mountains in Africa or in Austria. And it's like once somebody realizes the gravity of what that plays on your heart and soul to be out there pursuing an animal that will outsmart you very often. There's no guarantee. It's called hunting, not shopping.
Yep.
And that game and that effort you put in, when that is finally a delicacy on your dinner table, there are very few things in life that are as satisfying.
And I took a new angler out trolling for walleye on when Bill and I did. She's never been trolling before. She's never been walleye fishing before. And got her out there, and we limited out on our walleye. And
wow.
Nice.
That time we were not attacked by bugs. The lake flies are out in the trillions.
Yeah, I saw your picture of you hiding under your sweatshirt or whatever it was.
Yes, I could not. You would blink, and there would be about 10 more on the eyelashes. Oh. You were just covered, absolutely covered.
What lake?
Winnebago.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but you've been really slaying the fishing lately.
Yes, it's so much fun. I have my third tag walleye, and that's when they put the antenna.
That's insane.
Yes, it's so exciting.
I want to get a tagged walleye because I want to put that on my waterfowl lanyard.
Yeah.
There you go.
They're like circles, right?
No, that's the lip tag. This is like the antenna that they behind the dorsal fin.
Tag. Do you get to keep it, or do you have to send it to somebody?
You just take pictures of it. There's the DNR number on the back, and then the fish number on the other side, and then you look on the DNR website, and then you can send it to whatever lake you got it on, and you just
How
send,
cool.
Yeah, you send it.
What
in
are you
going to
do with them? Are you going to make jewelry or something with them?
I just have them hanging in my kitchen, my window,
I would make
next to
something
my
for
first
sure.
my first bullet from my first shot with my first deer.
Nice.
I have all my firsts just lined up.
Yeah, see, I
next to
make
my
stuff
first
out of
turkey
everything.
fan.
I wear like turkey spur necklaces.
Yes,
we've
you do.
noticed. We've
Yeah.
seen
You do.
some of the-
I know.
We went to the turkey banquet, and I'm like, what's with the turkey spur necklace? You know?
Turkey
But
spur
it's-
necklace and turkey foot knife.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I know it's a little strange, but I'm a big fan of conversation pieces
Yeah.
in life. So
Those are definitely both. They're good. They're good.
You are a conversation starter.
yeah, oh boy. What I can tell you is there's a hint of sarcasm in Dan's compliment. That
No,
much
no.
I know.
So you saying you want him to make you one?
I can make you
I thought
something,
about
Dan.
that, and I thought, no, maybe not. You
That's
know?
when Dan says what I've heard him say before. I'm good.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
I'm good.
I'm good
Yeah.
on that. You know, Dan, how did you get into hunting?
So funny enough, my father never hunted, but my mother's brother did. And my mom
Your
grew
uncle.
up in Shawano, Wisconsin. And so even back in the day, so I mean, it's a long time ago, he was a bow hunter. And I can remember being up there, and one of the neighbors had shot a deer with a bow, and it was hanging there, and I was so fascinated by it, like, oh my gosh, how would you do this? And so my uncle Bob, who's now gone, took us out, myself and my cousin, and never shot anything. I don't think we even saw anything, but I mean, the story was set, And
Yeah.
And I grew up in Brookfield, but Brookfield was different then. I mean, I would run a trap line before high school in the morning,
Oh, boy.
And, try to shoot rabbits and pheasants with my bow. And, and it just slowly
How old were
evolved.
you at the time?
Well, I mean, in high school, so you're
So,
16,
yeah.
17 years old. And when I was a junior in high school, my biology teacher, Gary Risch, was an amateur taxidermist, and he had all kinds of taxidermy in his class. And he was like, so if you guys want to learn how to do this, you can come into class before school. And my mother would drive me, God bless her, my mother would drive me to school before class started, and I would be in Gary Risch's biology class
No
learning how to
way.
skin a pheasant. So this was
That
like,
is so cool.
yeah. And that's and another classmate, Jim Hornick, also.
Oh, you're
was
kidding.
a
Hornick
big-
taxidermy.
Yeah, Jim Hornick taxidermy, great taxidermist, great guy, great hunter. Was doing it at the same time. So I mean, Gary Risch was a wonderful man.
Oh my gosh,
That's how
what a
that started.
great story.
That is a really nice story.
And I don't know if you'll have an answer to this or not, but how has your passion for the outdoors of Wisconsin and your love of hunting and fishing and wild game eating and taxidermy, how did that translate into an advantage for you as you worked in the law enforcement field as your professional career for so many years?
Well, a couple different ways, I think. A lot of it had to do with contacts that you develop, sort of like with you or Danielle or whoever. Like when you're doing it, you're making friends and doing things. And then when I was on the job as a deputy, I would share that with other deputies. And then, the time came and I never anticipated it that I would run for sheriff. And it was never something I wanted to do, to be quite honest. But
Well, you shouldn't have been so good at it then.
well, it just sort of happened. But then a lot of those contacts from taking people and sharing experiences and taking them hunting, just was really a great networking.
Yeah, and here we are today on Raised in Wisco. And, the stuff we talked about today is all exactly why we encourage those of you who haven't tried it yet. Ask somebody. Get them to take you. Experience the great outdoors. We'll see you next week on Raised in Wisco with Joel Clayfish and Danielle Fairman on 540 AM, 101 FM, The Shaw. See you next week.
Have a good night.
I'll let my